July. Thanks for coming to Township Tuesday, everyone. I'm going to let Lisa get us started with some updates from Maddit, and then we'll go on from there.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, and I hope you had enjoyed your long weekend. We're just going to go through a few things for Maddit, and if you have any questions, where to address those questions to, and/or I can post on the page as well. Currently, we are working with EXL, as a lot of you know. We are doing the property appraisals. And so the primary contact is for EXL is the clerk. Okay, I wanted you to know that you can assign the supervisors to meet with the rep if needed. Otherwise, the clerk can meet with them as well. This is by county, so if you haven't seen in the insider and/or the monthly communication, please let us know and we can let you know when they will be contacting you per your county. Afterwards, we are sending out a notification on a quarterly via email regarding changes. It's going to be labeled property appraisal report. This way that it'll go directly to your township with any changes to your current property. So feel free to contact us with questions regarding that. And please, as a reminder, add Origami Risk to your email contacts. All right, what is happening? It is going to your spam and/or junk, but that is our communication of record. And I can send a quick reminder in the group chat how to do that. But otherwise, you can email us at my apologies, maddeninsurance@mntownships.org. It's been a long weekend, you guys. So with that being said, just look out for the reminders from Med Insurance, which is coming from Origami Risk. This is saving, the email communication is keeping the cost down for all the townships. Communication is going out, such as our CLC reminders that are going out this afternoon. If you're not paid, they are past due. Due date was 8/15/2025. And an email will be going out this afternoon, and it will be coming out from Origami Risk. And I will post in the communication how to add that to your contact list so it does not continue to go to spam and/or junk folder. These are legit. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us or pick up the phone if you feel that it's suspicious. But we will put in there Maddit and then who it's from when it comes to the communication. And in this case, labeled property appraisal report, that is coming from Origami Risk as well. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to put your questions in the chat and I will respond. And I'm going to hand that back to you, Maddie. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Lisa. I don't have many updates for Matt this week. We wrapped up our district meetings this week, where we were out on the road meeting with all of you, seeing your faces, which I really appreciated, and I know the other attorneys appreciated as well, and our other staff members who are along with us. But coming up, we do have L&R. So I want to give you a quick reminder about that before I jump into my presentation. But L&R is coming up on September 12th. And I really encourage you guys to participate. It's in Mankato this year. It's free to attend. So we want as many of you, if you can make it down there. I know it's kind of a travel for some people, but if you can make it down there, we really appreciate. The more voices, the better. It's our Legislative Research Committee develop recommendations for our legislative action within the next year. So if you can get down there, that's great. Our registration is on our website, as well as other information on lodging and where you can stay and how to get there and all of that. So that is September 12th. I believe it starts at 10 a.m. So make sure to check that out if you have the availability. But other than that, I will jump into my topic for the day, which is credit cards. Let me see. I'm going to share my screen, so you should all be able to see it. Oh, hold on. think I shared the wrong screen. No, I didn't. There. Okay. So you should be able to see my screen now.
Yeah, looks good.
Thanks, Leslie. Okay, so I also have the chat pulled up. So if you have any questions throughout, just let me know. Otherwise, of course, you can always call or email me if something comes up later. So credit cards. This is a topic that I get questions on semi-frequently. So I just thought we would run through it today. Come on. Okay, there. All right, so the rules for credit cards are in Minnesota Statute 471.382. This gives us some guidance, and that's the entirety of the statute there. I won't bore you by reading it, but that's where you can find kind of our authorization to use credit cards. First, the statute says that your town board can authorize the use of a credit card by an officer or an employee. That means no one else should be using the credit card unless, of course, the board has formally authorized it. So this officer or employee makes direct purchases with the credit card that the board has not approved. That person, not the township, is then responsible for paying the bill. So in other words, if they make these unauthorized charges, they become personally liable for those charges. That's an important safeguard for the taxpayer dollars that would be used to pay that credit card. So keep in mind, you can have a credit card, but there is some personal liability that comes along with it if it is misused. The statute is pretty clear that other purchasing laws and township policies still apply to credit cards. Just because the purchase is made with a credit card doesn't mean normal rules can be skipped or ignored. So you still have to pay attention to that. For example, like bidding requirements, spending limits, all of those board approval processes must still be followed. For townships, this statute is about control and accountability because credit cards can get out of control. It allows the convenience of a credit card, but it still prevents the misuse that can come along with credit cards often. So it makes sure that these purchases are approved purchases that are statutorily authorized. So in simple terms, the township can authorize credit card use, but only with a resolution. This means that the board must make that formal action before any officer or employee can use the township credit card. It's not automatic. You don't automatically have the ability to do this. You have to take the step to do this. Once that authorization is given, no new people automatically get access to that spending. So you have to be cautious on how you are documenting that, the wording you're using in the resolution, because only those approved by the board are allowed to use the card. This is to prevent misuse, and it keeps control it keeps it tight. Even when using a township credit card, all other statutes and rules still apply. I already mentioned that. You can't shortcut around the law just with the credit card. It just makes things a little bit easier in terms of online payments, right? Oh, I have a question in the chat. .gov township domains. I have been getting a few questions lately about .gov being needed by 6/1/26. Thought it's only needed if the township administers mail-in ballots. Is that true? So a .gov domain is required if the township has a website. It has nothing. The trigger isn't online ballots or mail-in ballots. Excuse me. The trigger is if you have a website. You need to have a .gov domain, and you need to apply for that .gov domain by 2026. The application process is long, so you're still in compliance if you've applied, but you haven't switched over yet by that June date. But if you have questions, Leslie can help you out on switching to that .gov domain. Okay, back to credit cards. So If a township or a township employee or officer makes a purchase that's not authorized by the board, they become personally liable for that charge. It comes out of their own pockets, not the township's pockets. So, what about debit cards? The thing about debit cards is it's kind of interesting because they're a little different from credit cards, and the law on this is actually not very clear. In fact, the legislature seems to have forgotten that debit cards exist. So, unlike credit cards, there's no specific statute that authorizes or prohibits a township to use one. So, because of that, there's no court case held that townships can or cannot use a debit card. Um, Uncertainty usually means that you should take a cautious approach. You should assume that townships cannot use debit cards because without that explicit authorization, the risk is that an auditor or court could view that as an outside purchase or a purchase outside of the township's authority. And then you would be in trouble because there's no statute telling you that you can. So if we look around the country, other states have kind of mixed record on this issue. Some states allow it, some states don't. So some states discourage it, some states prohibit it. So the law is unclear. It doesn't flat out forbid debit cards, but the safe path is to avoid them unless in the future we get more clarity from the legislature in this department. So in the statute, it says may authorize. So when a statute says the town board may authorize the use of a credit card, it's important to note what that really means. That language is purposeful, and the word may says that the default rule is no. It's automatically no until you authorize it. So no officer or employee automatically has the right to use a township credit card until it's authorized. It only becomes permitted once the board takes action, once the board passes that resolution to allow it. And if you don't take that action and you use a credit card, that's when that personal liability kicks in. And there is not clear a penalty. In the case of violation, there isn't a jail sentence or a fine or misconduct written into the law, but the consequence is that personal liability. So you want to be cautious of that. This is obviously to prevent misuse and to control township funds, which are taxpayer dollars. So how do we create this resolution? What does that look like? There's no magic words that you have to use in the resolution. It doesn't state what needs to be stated in the resolution. No special phrases, right? But what matters is that the resolution clearly states who is authorized to use the credit card and for what purposes. So once that resolution is adopted, it should be kept as a standalone document where it's easy to find. You can reference it quickly. That's why we always recommend that you have a resolution book separate from maybe your ordinance book or your minutes, just so that you can always easily access them. It's not required, but I do strongly recommend it. The policy, you should also have a policy that goes along with it, a credit card policy. That will spell out the rules. What are the spending limits? What are the approval requirements? How are these records kept? Once the policy is adopted, you can adopt those at the same time. It should be attached to the resolution so that everything's in one place. Everybody knows the rules for the use of this credit card and how to go about doing that and where to find it when a question arises. All right, so a sample resolution. Here's a little bit of sample language. I'll walk through it. It starts by citing the law, obviously, that statute. It makes it clear that, hey, we have the authority to use it, and here is where we found that authority. Then the resolution states that the township has adopted a credit card use policy, which is important because that lays out the rules. That describes who can use the credit card, what kinds of purchases are allowed, what documentation is required, and what safeguards are in place. The policy is kind of the backbone of the resolution and explains what that accountability will look like. The whereas section here explains the reasoning. Why are you using the credit card? It helps with efficiency, but the safeguards are needed to protect those taxpayer dollars. And then you get down to the now therefore be it resolved section, which names a specific officer or employee who is authorized to use the credit card. And then it provides that only those listed in the policy are allowed to use the card, no one else, to keep that under tight control. And then it explains every use of the credit card and how it must follow the policy, including itemized receipts, turning them in promptly, making sure the purchases are recorded, and that it also describes that personal liability disclaimer, reminding everyone that, hey, if you make a purchase that isn't approved or violates this policy, you have to pay for it, and the township isn't on the hook for that. So, officer, beware, right? It's in writing. Everyone is aware of it, and officers should acknowledge that in writing, just as good record keeping. And then, of course, an effective date for the board to officially adopt the resolution. So the policy, what should the policy look like when you're adopting a policy along with that resolution? This is where the real protection kind of comes in your credit card use policy that goes along with the resolution. It should be clear, so everybody understands it, practical so everybody can follow it, and of course, enforceable. So here are some best practices in this topic list that I have up here on the screen. So first, the policy should list both permissible and prohibited purchases to avoid any gray areas. So office supplies might be allowed, but gift cards or personal meals are not, right? It should also set up a review process. That might mean one of the officers in your township is designated to receive those receipts before the payment is approved. The oversight is the key there. You'll want to include transaction limits. That can be a dollar amount. I got a question in the chat. To add origamiwrist.com to your email contacts and prevention MAT ending up spam or junk folder, follow these steps. Oh, that's Lisa.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, Lisa added in the chat how to get MAT out of your junk folder kind of step by step. So thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the policy. Transaction limits, these can be dollar limits per purchase, per day, per month. It just prevents unauthorized expenses from slipping through so everybody knows what that limit looks like. You should make it clear that there is a strict prohibition on personal use. Even if you intend to pay the township back, you can't use it for your personal purchases. Those should never be allowed on a township card. And then requiring user acknowledgments is always a good idea. This creates a record that whatever officer is using the card is aware of their responsibilities and the standards that are required of them, and that they would have to reimburse or that they would be then personally liable for unauthorized expenses. And then receipt retention, you want to have itemized receipts turned in promptly. Itemized is the key word there. You really want to know what is being purchased on this card because, again, all statutory requirements still apply, and there are public policy reasons why you need to know what was purchased, because sometimes townships can't make certain purchases. So you have to know exactly what was bought. And then you want to make sure to include what happens if the card is lost or stolen or compromised. So have a rule requiring fraud reporting, that the user must report it immediately, so that the township can act. And then that the card must be paid off every month. That's really important because a township cannot carry a credit card balance ever. They need to pay off those debts every month. They can't have outstanding debt in this regard. And then credit cards often come with reward points. If the town earns cash back or miles or rewards, the policy should make clear that those are the township's rewards, not any individual, and they belong to the township, not the individual user. And then finally, who is responsible for disputed charges? So if there is an issue with the credit card, the policy should explain who must work with the bank to resolve those issues, who is responsible for that. It's just, this policy, it's a roadmap for the credit card user, and the authority on who to use it and how. All right, so I mentioned a little bit that the credit card use must comply with existing statutes and rules that already exist. So having a credit card doesn't kind of create a free pass around Minnesota laws. You still have to follow all of the spending requirements that are already put into place for townships. There's no authority for a new form of debt. You cannot accrue debt. So you have to pay off that credit card every month, and you can't let that credit card balance roll over and accrue interest. If interest charges appear, that's essentially unauthorized form of borrowing, and the township doesn't have the authority to do that. So you can't accrue that. So make sure that if you do have a township credit card, that you're paying that off every month and you're able to pay it off every month. And keep that in mind when you're setting those purchasing limits. And keep in mind, there is a public purpose doctrine, which means that every purchase must serve a public purpose. That's why it's important to have an itemized statement. They can only be spent on things that clearly benefit the township and its residents, not private or personal uses, which gets me to the second part of that public purpose doctrine, which is that there must be statutory authority for that purchase. Every purchase you make must have a statute that allows you to make it. And the township must have the legal authority to buy it. So a credit card doesn't expand that authority. It's just a different payment method. All right, so personal liability. We already talked about this quite a bit, but the most important part, I think, of the credit card statute on personal liability is that second part, that second sentence in the statute that says, if a city or town office or employee makes a direct purchase by credit card that is not approved by the city council or town board, the office or employee is personally liable for the amount of the purchase. And what that means is the township is not responsible for paying unauthorized spending. That individual is. So if someone uses a township credit card for something that wasn't approved, they have to pay for it out of their own pocket. And then let's connect the another statute here to credit cards. This is a criminal statute, and it basically means in plain language that if a township officer knowingly approves or pays for a false or fraudulent claim, it's a crime. This is a criminal statute. So a law applies to credit card use as much as it applies to paper invoices or checks. So if someone submits a false receipt disguised as a personal purchase, for the township, or if the township approves something they know is improper, they could face criminal penalties, which is, it says here, up to 5 years in prison or 10,000 fine or both. So it applies to anyone in the chain. So whether you make the purchase, approve the statement, sign the check, if you know the charge is improper or fraudulent and you approve it anyway, you will share responsibility for that. So we talked about personal liability, but this statute makes it clear that intentional misuse or fraudulent use of a credit card spending can potentially raise to the level of criminal fraud. So if fraud statutes apply to credit cards in the same way they do with any other purchasing for the township. So a key part of public finance law states that repaying money doesn't excuse the initial misuse of the public funds. So we already talked about how you will be personally liable. You'll have to pay that back. But that doesn't excuse the fact that you did it. You could still be in trouble for misusing the credit card or acting fraudulently. So in a Court of Appeals case from 2012, the court addressed this exact situation. An individual made purchases on a city credit card. They realized the issue and reimbursed the city. So you might think, well, they paid it back, so it's fine, right? But that could be wrong, depending on the situation. The court held that the repayment does not erase the crime, and the individual could still be charged with a false claim or theft by swindle, even if the money was returned. So bottom line is you never want to use township funds for personal purposes, even temporarily. Reimbursement does not protect you from that criminal liability. So these policies that I talked about earlier, that kind of oversight is really crucial to prevent mistakes and protect the township and the officers from any trouble that might come with having a credit card. If you're interested in getting a credit card for your township to make purchases go more smoothly or make it easier, there are some other resources out there for you. We have our guidance, obviously, in F3000, which is in our information library. You can always ask us questions if you have something more specific, but the state has its own credit card policy here. I have links, and then the state auditor's office also has some published guidance on it. So if you are interested in it, make sure you just kind of know what you're getting into, understand these policies, and understand the policy that you create, and make sure all of your officers do as well. All right, that's all I have in regards to, oh, I lost where I was at. Okay, I'll stop sharing now. All right, that's all I have for credit card policies. Does anybody have any questions? Reno?
Say, Maddie, are you going to have a copy of the resolution? Is it on our website?
It's not currently on our website, but I can make sure that it gets up there shortly.
Yeah, could you send me one, please? Thank you.
Of course, yeah. Make a note. The resolution is not included on there. That resolution was just sample language that I ran through quickly to give you guys an idea of what they should look like. But I will run it past the other attorneys just to get some other eyes on it before I put a sample up there. But we'll make sure to get one up there. Okay. Do you recommend the treasurer since supervisor changes with elections? For oversight, you mean? For recommend the treasurer for the person kind of reaching out to the bank? I mean, that could make sense, right? They are working with the finances of the township, but there's no specific person that needs to be assigned to that role for using purchases. Yeah, there's no specific person who is assigned. So it really depends on what makes sense for your township. But they do, regardless of who it is, they need authorization from the board to make those expenses. So you want to clearly lay out what that looks like in the policy. Any other questions? All right, I will take that as a no. Oh, should there be a policy on purchases by invoice? Yeah, you can make a policy for purchases by invoice. The thing is, they have to, the statute that requires these purchases to be authorized, so they have to be authorized by kind of the board, the treasurer, and the clerk. Now, the state auditor thinks that that means 3 signatures on a check, but if there is a purchase by some other means, sometimes that requires signatures in different places, but those 3 people need to know that this spending is occurring. So if you want a policy that kind of lays out what that looks like, that could be a good idea for you. Same thing with payments online, right? Same kind of concept. There needs to, that 3 check signature that people often refer to. So the board needs to authorize a payment, the clerk needs to keep a record of it, and the treasurer needs to make the payment from the township account. So all 3 of those people, there needs to be in writing somewhere that those 3 people approve that spend, that expense. Do I see risk where? Baytown Township asks, do I see risk? There's always risk in anything, but in online purchasing. I don't know, right? Online is a crazy animal. There are a lot of things online that could be risky. You want to make sure that whatever you're spending township funds on is statutorily authorized and it's being purchased for the public, the use of the public, for the township. So those are the requirements you want to pay attention to. Obviously, online purchases, there are scams that exist out there. And that's just a reality of it, but risk in terms of beyond what other purchases are, I don't know. Unfortunately, it can be just easier to make those online purchases. It can be just less complicated than trying to find things in a store nowadays, but it's really up to your township on what they want to do there. Oh, I'm glad you guys like the topic. Yeah. Yeah, follow up with emails and questions if you didn't get to ask them. But other than that, I hope you guys have a great week, and I hope you had a good holiday weekend. And please let me know if you need anything.